What if I told you that West Virginia was in the running for what I consider an off the radar transfer portal quarterback? What if I told you he might is key word there, cost a little less money than somebody like, I don't know, Colton Joseph from Old Dominion? What if I told you it's a quarterback that at one time could have played in the SEC, but controversy kept him from doing so, and cancel culture almost derailed his career? But what if I told you after 2 years, he has a chance to redeem himself, potentially in Morgantown? That's what we're talking about today. We're talking about none other than Marcus Stokes. For those of you who may remember, I had forgotten about this story, but about 3 years ago, there was a very highly rated high school quarterback who had committed to the Florida Gators. But because he sang a rap song that contained the N-word and put it live on social media, he got his offer pulled. And not only from Florida, but no P4 school would touch this football player. Even though he was a 4-star recruit, according to 24/7 Sports, even though he was very talented, even though he led Nice High School in Florida to the second most successful run in history outside of a guy named, I don't know, Tim Tebow, somebody you might have heard of, he got his offer pulled. Well, I heard that story when it happened, never thought anything else about it. That young man has now popped up on the radar. He has spent the last 3 years at West Florida, or the University of West Florida, which is a Division II school. And now he's in the transfer portal. And I know what some of you are asking, Coos, the transfer portal window is not open yet. That is for Division I players. For Division II players, it's already open. And he's already in it. And he already has a lot of schools coming after him, or at least talking to him, or at least on his radar, including the West Virginia Mountaineers. I'm going to go ahead and put up a graphic real quick for those of you listening, or watching rather. This is from Hayes Fawcett from On3, who posted this to show all the schools that are interested in this young man. Look at that graphic. A lot of schools. Now, you see a lot of FCS schools. You see a lot of G6 schools, rather. You do see, though, a handful of Power 4 schools, including West Virginia. You also see Syracuse. You also see Wisconsin, Boston College. But up in the left corner, right below Florida State, you see what? The beautiful, sexy Flying WV of the West Virginia Mountaineers. You also see the Iowa Hawkeyes on there. Can't forget them. Their logo almost, it's hard to even see. Ironically, you also see down in the bottom right corner the North Texas Mean Green logo. Could Neil Brown snag this guy, this young man? You see Old Dominion, Liberty, Charlotte, James Madison, FIU, UAB, a lot of really good schools. Handful of Power 4s, though, with West Virginia being one of them. And according to the tweet by Hayes Fawcett, it says West Florida standout transfer quarterback Marcus Stokes has heard from these schools since entering the transfer portal. He tells On3 Sports. The 6'2", 210 quarterback totaled 3,664 yards and 40 touchdowns this season. Is a finalist for the Harlon Hill Trophy, which is equivalent to the Heisman Award for D2 football players. So he's one of the best Division II football players in the country. He had offers out of high school from people. I mentioned Florida. He had one time he was committed to Penn State. Utah was talking to him. Indiana. I mentioned 24 had him as a 90-rated 4-star recruit. They had him listed as he was a top 25 quarterback in the entire country by 24/7 Sports and ESPN. He was a 3-star recruit according to Rivals and ESPN. I mentioned 4-star by 24/7 Sports. He's now a 3-star recruit out of the D2 ranks in the portal. When you look at his career stats, or his high school stats rather, or I'm sorry, no, this is his college stats. His 2 years that he has played, he redshirted his first year in 2023. He played in 8 games in 2024, and then this past year he started all 10 games for the Argonauts, the Argonauts of West Florida rather. But his 2-year stats over 2 years, his passing stats, 220 completed 223 out of 368 passes for 30 touchdowns and 13 interceptions, 3,297 yards. His rushing numbers, because we all know rushing matters when it comes to Rich Rodriguez and this Mountaineer offense. 82 carries, 367 yards, 10 touchdowns, 4.5 yards per carry. Now, that doesn't blow you away, does it? This is not a run-first quarterback, but what he is a quarterback who can run the football, kind of like Scotty Fox. He kind of reminds me of a Scotty Fox. Similar build, similar talent level, in my opinion. This will be a quarterback who could come in my opinion, if West Virginia gets him, he could come in and compete with Scotty Fox for the starting quarterback job at West Virginia. Now, I know a lot of people don't like the idea of bringing in somebody to compete with Scotty Fox, but competition creates better players. Iron sharpens iron, as they say. And this young man is a very, very good football player, and he could push Scotty Fox and potentially be the starter, and he has 2 years of eligibility left. He's a redshirt sophomore. So 2 years of eligibility remaining. And now, back to the controversial part, because I know that's what a lot of you might be wondering about. He had his scholarship pulled, and I think I mentioned it, for saying the N-word on a video. Look, the kid was 18 years old, okay? We all do dumb stuff at 18 years old. Unfortunately for him, he plastered his on social media. And you remember back in 2022, cancel culture was kind of running amok a little bit, and it got this young man. He come out and apologized for it, said he made a mistake, and he suffered the consequences, had his scholarship pulled. Now, he was able to get, to get a college. I'm assuming he's getting a scholarship to West Florida. I don't know that for a fact. So it's not like his life ended over it. But I'm sure it was a setback. I'm sure it was a very big disappointment for this young man. But in my opinion, look, 3 years have gone. I never condone anyone to use that word, okay? But, man, it was 3 years ago. He was an 18-year-old kid, or maybe even 17 at the time. I think you take a chance on him. He's now a grown man. He's probably old enough to buy a beer at this point, at least potentially. Not exactly sure how old he is. But if he's not, he probably will be by the time he gets to Morgantown. A lot of time has passed. And this young man has, again, he's apologized. He's went the D2 route and worked his way back up the ladder. If he's good enough to play, bring him to Morgantown. And it's possible. Look, it's possible you might get him at a lower price, like I mentioned earlier, than some of these other quarterbacks that may enter the portal from higher level. But at the same time, when you see some of these schools that are after him, if they're seriously after him, then again, he might not be so cheap. He might be the most highly sought after D2 quarterback ever. But to me, when you look at the risk versus the reward here, I think it's worth it. You might have a few people get mad about it, a few people who still think the young man should be canceled for making one mistake in his life. But I'm sure the coaching staff would vet it out. I'm sure he has black teammates. I'm sure they would vouch for him if he's a good person or not. So I would have no issue with West Virginia bringing this young man in. I haven't watched a ton of his highlights, but I watched enough to know he has the talent. Again, he's not an elite runner, but he's a good runner. And he has experience playing in an RPO system, just like Rich Rod does. I'm sure there are some differences in what he does versus Rich Rod, but it's nonetheless, he's accustomed to having to make decisions in the RPO game, and that is huge to me because that's probably something a lot of quarterbacks have to grow into. And, of course, it is more popular in today's high school game than it was at one time. But he played it in high school, and he plays it in college as well, an RPO system. I'm going to read you the write-up that 24/7 Sports did on him coming out of high school. Very high praise. According to Andrew Ivins over at 24/7 Sports at the time, he said, this is back in February of 22. So this is, 3 years ago? Yeah, almost 4 years ago. He projects him to be a 4th to 7th round draft pick in the NFL. The player he reminds him the most of, gosh, I hate to say this name. This might actually hurt. Forgive me, Mountaineer Nation. Maybe I should just skip this part. What the heck? He reminds him of Kenny Pickett, who once played for the Pittsburgh Steelers, now is playing for the Las Vegas Raiders. But here's what he went on to say about Marcus Stokes. The type of quarterback that isn't afraid to take risks and push the limits. Measured roughly 6'2", 185. Again, that was when he was in high school. He's now up to 205, I believe. Spring before senior season and has room to add some more mass if needed. Shouldn't exactly be viewed as a true dual threat talent, but is a crafty runner that's more than capable of finding success and moving the chains on design runs. Thrives as a passer when he's on the move and will squeeze the ball into tight windows as he escapes pressure. Serves up a rather tight spiral and will use a variety of different arm angles to execute off-platform throws. A bit of a late bloomer that didn't become a full-time starter until he was a junior. Found instant success in an RPO-heavy spread attack, leading a knees program to one of its best seasons since Tim Tebow was suiting up for the Panthers, as he totaled over 3,000 yards of offense and had a hand in over 25 touchdowns. Will likely need a few years to get adjusted to the speed and everyday demands of big-time Power 5 football. That is a red flag to me. But he goes on to say, but has the skill set to eventually emerge as a starter on Saturdays. Violate play style could lead to unexpected wins. I'm not sure what that means. That might be a misprint. But could also result in unexpected losses. NFL ceiling given competitive edge and natural feel for the position, but must keep progressing and find ways to limit mistakes. Was also a dual sport athlete in high school, which is big. But here's the schools that were after him in high school. I'm going to, or that at least showed interest in him. I don't want to say after him. Utah, Liberty. I mentioned Florida, Florida State, Ole Miss, Indiana, Cincinnati, Penn State, and Florida. He also at one time got a offer from after the controversy happened, he got an offer from an HBCU who then had to pull his offer because the coach got a bunch of backlash for it. But the young man still ended up at University of West Florida playing for the Argonauts, and he's had a really good 2-year career there. Well, 3 years technically because of his redshirt year. But he's had 2 really solid years, about 1.5 of those as a starter there. So I really like this young man, and I think, look, if you have a chance to bring him in without having to pay him a ton of money, I say go for it. Now, would I rather have Colton Joseph from Old Dominion? Absolutely. He's played at a higher level. Would I rather have, I don't know, a quarterback with P4 experience? Yes. Would I rather have a quarterback who's maybe an elite runner, more of an elite runner? Yes, but at the same time, this is now a business, and you have to look at the cost. Coming from D2, he should technically cost less money. Now, Florida State could try to force you into a bidding war. Not necessarily. I don't necessarily think you need to get into a bidding war for him. But man, if he really likes what Coach Rod is doing at West Virginia, and they really think he's a fit, and he thinks he's a fit, I think it's worth the risk. Despite the controversy from 3 years ago, it's worth it. Give the young man another chance. He was a 17, 18-year-old kid when he did what he did. Yes, it was dumb. But at the end of the day, he didn't kill anybody. He didn't commit a crime. I say bring him in. Again, vet the players he's played with, vet the coaches he's played for. Maybe even have a talk with some of your senior leaders on your team, some of your black senior leaders on your team. See how they feel about it. But as long as it, and I would say most of them probably won't care, just to be honest. Because I think society makes a much bigger deal out of some of these things than the individuals who they think were offended. The people who they think were offended may not have even been offended. But society has a way of telling us when we should be offended, right? But anyway, I don't want to get on that soapbox. But I want to hear your thoughts. Let's go ahead and go over to the chat. I did this one live tonight. Probably not going to be on here a real long time. But let's go ahead and jump over to the chat real quick. Thank you all for hopping on. We have It's Coop in the house. We've got Aiden's Collectibles. We have, you made a live, Aiden's. Awesome. Thank you for being here. We have Jacob Yoho in the house. Seymour Wang in the house. Joey Foster. What's up, Joey? Thanks for joining, brother. Good to hear from you. Aiden's thinks it'll come down to Florida State and West Virginia. We have Mr. John in the house. We have Jerry Justice in the house. We have John White in the house. We have Curtis D. Dark Hawk Mark in the house. And once again, Kevin Varney, thank you, brother. He says he's a paid VIP member. You see the badge by his name. He says, I think you were spot on it. Thank you, Kevin. Appreciate you, brother. And we have Runaway Milk Truck. Thank you, Runaway Milk Truck, for joining the chat. And Michael Weintraub, thank you. By the way, again, as I've reminded you about, guys, in past shows, I'm having to read based on your Twitter, on your YouTube handle now. For whatever reason, they have now started showing the handles in my chat instead of the actual screen name. So I apologize for that. If that's not what you want to be called by, that's all I can see. Curtis D says Michigan head coach who was fired has just been arrested with potential charges. Holy cow. Arrested. Wow. Man, Michigan. Look, I'm not a Michigan fan, but it's hard not to feel for them a little bit, man. They've been through. Actually, you know what? I take it back. They just won a national championship 2 years ago. I don't really feel for them as I don't feel for their fan base. But man, as a program, they have been through it. What about Rocco Becht? Did he commit? Now, he hasn't committed anywhere. He hasn't even entered the portal yet. He can't enter the portal. D1 players can't even enter the portal until January 2nd. That's when the window opens. If I had to pick between this guy and Rocco Becht, I would pick Rocco Becht just because of the simple fact he has P4 experience. He's played in the Big 12. He's played on a high level. I think you have to go that. But Rocco Becht's likely going, if he enters the portal and doesn't want to follow, Matt Campbell to Penn State, he's likely going to cost a ton of money. I think this young man might be as good as Rock. I think his ceiling is as high as Rocco Becht, maybe even higher, potentially. And you might be able to get him for less money because he's coming from the D2. And if you have a ton of confidence, if you're Rich Rod and you feel like Scotty Fox does have the ability to be your guy, but you just need to bring somebody in to challenge him and to push him and to be a good backup if Scotty gets hurt, if he doesn't win the job, then I think this young man does that. I think he checks all those boxes. But now if you need somebody that you know for sure can come in and start day one, then this kid may not be him. But as far as somebody that can push Scotty Fox and compete for the job, I think he checks that box for sure. But thank you for that update on Michigan, Curtis. That's crazy. That is crazy. If Rich Rod wants him, that's all I need to know. I'd rather have the ODU quarterback too, Runaway Milk Truck. But again, he's going to have a ton of suitors, and he's probably going to be super expensive. I think it all boils down to what do you need? Do you need a day one starter, or do you just need somebody to compete for the job and potentially be a solid backup to Scotty? And again, that's a question that Rich Rod will have to answer. Daniel Gigax in the house says, I hope you know my real name, not screen name. I actually do know your name, sir. Absolutely. Daniel Gigax at the other Gigax on YouTube. Thank you, Daniel. Thank you, brother, for being a paid member. Bob Swanger in the house says ESPN is reporting detained. Wow. Timothy Akers watching from Bluefield, West Virginia. Thank you, brother, for tuning in. Man, college football just keeps getting crazier and crazier. There's a new breaking story every day between the college football playoff snubs and Notre Dame, calling out the ACC, and then you've got Utah getting a $500 million equity deal. Now you've got Michigan's coach being fired and potentially allegedly arrested. Man alive. Crazy stuff. Daniel Gigax says maybe we can ask Rocco's dad to donate to Golden Blue Enterprises to help with the NIL to his son. Bingo. Absolutely. Got a comment from James who says, you need a day one starter. Cannot count on what you have. Still no guarantee Scotty even returns. And you're accurate on all those things. It's I would not have an issue either way. I trust Rich Rod's judgment. He's been doing this for over 20 years. He knows what he needs at quarterback. First thing you need to do, though, honestly, and I think they're working on this, obviously, with the recruits they brought in and whatnot, but you got to shore up that offensive line, man. You have to shore up the offensive line. I heard through the grapevine that Scotty was pretty excited about the recruiting class that Rich Rod was able to bring in. So I feel confident he'll stay. Now, they might have to pay him a little bit more NIL money, but, maybe he wants starter money now, and that's okay. Maybe you give it to him. But nonetheless, I feel like he'll stay. Again, it's not a guarantee, though. We never know. I thought Jaheim was going to stay, but that didn't happen. Offensive lineman Robbie Martin, who was at one time the number one player in the state of West Virginia, he is now entering the portal for the second time in his career. He's been in college 2 years, played for two different teams, and I think he's played in one game in his career. So not sure what's up with that. Maybe he's just not living up to the hype. Not sure. It's Coop says Trinidad was D2 and he was a Heisman contender for a while. Talking about Trinidad Chambliss, who's the quarterback at Ole Miss, absolutely. Somebody like Trinidad Chambliss is what we want. Now, Trinidad Chambliss, Trinidad's a great passer as well. Not really. I haven't watched a whole lot of Trinidad, but he's probably a little bit better runner than what Marcus Stokes is. But still, Marcus Stokes is a good enough runner, I think, to do what he needs to do at West Virginia. Byron Brown becomes available, says Curtis. That's who you have to throw big money at, and that's the running back from USF, right? And then Joey Foster says, but have they fired the O-line coach? That's the question. They have not, but the O-line coach is only on a one-year contract, talking about Jack McNeil, I assume. Will they choose to renew his contract for next season? It's hard to tell. My gut feeling tells me that they will, but I kind of want them not to. I know that might be unfair, but I just did not see enough progression on that offensive line this year to feel good about it, about his ability to develop players. And I think that I'd like to see him go a different direction, just my personal opinion. But if they don't, I'm going to trust Rich Rod's judgment. He's been coaching offense almost his entire career. He knows what his offensive line needs to look like. A lot of great comments. This is going to be a very short show. I do want to remind y'all, not remind you, but give you a heads up on something. You guys know that I've started doing about once a week, Trust the Beard podcast, the Beard over at the Trust the Beard podcast, and I do a show called the Bald and Beard Show. We just get on here and it's just a very casual chat, usually about West Virginia sports, usually West Virginia football, recruiting, games, whatever. For this next episode, we're looking to do, with the Jaheim White news that broke earlier this week, you kind of think, what if Jaheim White had stayed in Rich Rod's offense? What if, Rich Rod had been the coach prior? How good would he be? Though it's one of those what if situations in West Virginia football history, right? Take away the 13-9 game. Okay, take that out because we know that's the biggest what if of all time. Take that out of the equation. And again, I'm not asking you to answer in this show. If you want to, you obviously can. But matter of fact, go ahead and answer in this show because I can write some of these down for our show. But we're wanting to do a show about talking about some of the biggest what ifs in Mountaineer football history. So, again, take the 13-9 game out of the equation. What is your biggest what if moment? And heck, let's just throw in all of West Virginia Mountaineer sports. Include men's basketball, too, if you want, or any other sport for that matter. What's the biggest what-if moments in Mountaineer sports history outside of the 13-9 game? Something I'm not going to give you my answer right now, and plus I'm going to spend more time thinking about it, but it's just something he and I thought would be a very interesting topic to cover on our next show, especially since it's the offseason now for football. So another way you can answer the question, by the way, is to call. Leave me a voicemail. Call 304-712-9347. Again, 304-304-712-9347. Leave me a voicemail. Give me your biggest what-if moment in West Virginia Mountaineer sports history. And the best ones, I will play on the air. Make sure you leave me your name and where you're calling from. And the best ones, we will try to play on the show. Make sure you speak clearly where we can hear you as well. So if you want to have a chance for me to play it, you can also drop me you can also send me a DM on X. You can comment over on the channel in the community tab. Leave it here. What if? Whatever. It's Coop says, what if Bob Huggins never resigned from the Raekwon Battle Jesse Edwards team? Good one. Huggins 2023 or 20, was that 2023? That would have been the 2022-2023 team, right? Or 20, yeah. No, 23-24 team. My bad. That's a good one. What if Butler didn't get hurt? Good one. I like these, y'all. I'm jotting them down. Major doesn't get hurt. Big one, Major. What if Bob Huggins, what if WVU did not join the Big 12 that we don't fit in? Big 12. No fit, says Seymour. What if they never fired Stu? I like these, y'all. Never fired Stu. These are awesome. What if Dana Holgerson never left? And we won't be able to address all these. There's probably just too many of them. But these are awesome. If we can get Bynum Brown, he should be next, could be next Pat White. Agree. Texas fired Chad Scott yesterday. I imagine he'll go to North Texas with Coach Brown, probably so, and I hope he does. I'm sure Chad's coach got to land on his feet somewhere. Coach Brown looks like he's putting together a pretty good staff. He posted DC from Baylor. He posted GM away from Texas. Now, he wasn't Texas's GM. He was something in their front office there, but he brought him to North Texas as a GM, and now he's I saw where he might be grabbing. I forgot who I saw was going to be on his staff too. Can't remember, but he's doing big things. It will be hard to develop continuity at positions like O-line that need time to develop. Talking about if he's fired, maybe Travis. That's a fair point, and it's one reason I think he might not. And again, he wouldn't be fired. He would not. They would just not renew his contract to be technical. But after year one, if you're going to do it, I think now's the time to do it. When you're pretty much having to start over again anyway. I mean, look, let's face it. They're going to have at least 60 to 70 new players again. They had 80 last year. They're probably going to have 60 to 70 this year in 2025. Now, most of the guys will at least be able to go through a spring practice this time, which they did last year. And most of the staff will be there. But if you're going to replace a coach, now's probably the time to do it. Try to get your staff built now before you get 2-3 years into this thing. Curtis D says, what if Butler hadn't hurt his knee? Got that one. What if Rich Rod would have taken the Alabama job the year before? Rich Rod, Bama job. Good one. What if we would have beat Pitt? Yep, I already mentioned that one. I think that one's a no-brainer, right? I think we'd have won a national championship. Just be honest. What if 2020 March Madness didn't get canceled because COVID with Miles McBride? 2020, yeah, the team went on a run late that year and pulled a big upset over Baylor. They were playing good at the right time. They were one of the hottest teams in the country with NBA talent on it. Man, they were. I think they could have made a run. What if Jaheim didn't get hurt versus Ohio? Honestly, I still think we'd have been a 4-8 football team, just my opinion. Maybe I'm wrong, but I just don't think our O-line was good enough to help him a whole lot. What if Rich Rod never left? Would have had a dynasty. I'm not sure if Rich Rod never left. I don't know if that one qualifies because we don't want to talk about 13-9, but I don't know. Yeah, those are some great ones, y'all. What if the Orange Bowl never happens? Does Dana get that many years? What if McAfee made those field goals? Again, that's 13-9. What if Clemson hadn't fumbled on the goal line? I've been good, Mountaineer Lair with Kenny. How you been, brother? Oh, you're talking to Joey. My bad. But glad you're on here. Glad to see you, Kenny. Scrooge McDuck in the house says, "Oh, really? Wow. Do you think we'll get him if we do have a beer on me?" Let's see. I'm not sure who you're referring to, Scrooge McDuck, but Little Shane Lyons never hired Neil Brown. I got to go to page 2, y'all. Y'all are giving me some good ones here. Thank y'all. This is good stuff. By the way, if you want to call the and leave a voicemail, it does not have to be related to the what if scenarios. You can just call and give me your thoughts on West Virginia Mountaineer sports, and I can do that on a show as well, potentially. Well, heck, I forgot where I was at. Oh. What if they don't hire Brown? Well, who would they have had? They would have had to have hired somebody else. Let's see. I was watching some Pat White highlights today with my dad. I want someone who fits that mold more than another Scotty Fox type. That's fair, T Jinx 048, who, by the way, as you see, is also a VIP member. I would prefer that too. And I think he recruited a couple guys like that in the recruiting class this year. I think his name's John Johnson or whatever his name is from that Edna Carr school in Louisiana, one of the top high school programs in the country. Similar with Pat White. Most schools wanted him to come be an athlete, be a DB. Rich Ross said, "Hey, I will give you a chance to play quarterback." They weren't even on his radar until a couple days before signing day. But when Rich Ross told him he would give him a chance to play quarterback, it sealed the deal. That's where he wanted to go. Very good athlete. What if Oliver Luck never left? What if Gee was never hired? There are so many. Yes, true. Luck never left. DeVries. I got one. DeVries never left. I got one. What if? And I forgot it. Dang it. Oh. What if WVU wins that Oklahoma State game or Oklahoma game in 2018 and plays in a Big 12 title game and plays Oklahoma again? And they proved that they could beat Oklahoma. I still don't think they'd have beat them in a championship game either, though. A lot of what ifs, man. A lot of what ifs. Say, doesn't Pat have a medical redshirt year? Yeah, I wish. Where would WVU be if Rim Baker took another job before the hiring of Rich Rod? Great ones, guys. Great ones. What's the other channels called? What other channels are you referring to, brother? I have Hoops from the Hills where I cover West Virginia basketball, but most of that content's here as well. But the show I'm referring to is going to be on this channel. What if Greer had any kind of defense? You could say the same with Geno's teams, man. What if we beat Houston in 24? I'd have to go back and look, but they might have played for a Big 12 championship. I think you meant 2020. Yeah, I guess it was 2020. No, it was 2023, actually, when that happened. But yes. And I see you corrected it there. Anyway, thank y'all for those ideas, man. Me and the Beard have a lot to discuss now. And I'm sure we have a few of his own too. We have a lot of great ideas. Remember, you can call the number 304-712-9347. Leave me your voicemail. Leave your name, where you're calling from. Give me your what-if scenario for West Virginia sports outside of the 13-9 game. That one's – we all know about that one. That's the biggest what-if in history. But what are some other ones? Yeah, Joey says, what if Geno had not been a bench warmer in the NFL for 100 friggin' years? Yeah, that's a great point. He's struggling this year, though, isn't he? Wow. But also, if you want to leave me a message about anything else related to West Virginia sports or heck, college sports in general, feel free to do that on that voicemail line. I haven't done one of those shows in a while. I really enjoy doing those, and I think it's something a little bit different. So leave me a voicemail. I'll address it. Also, be sure to go check out our website, wvsportschat.com. Jonathan Martin, myself, and a few other writers over there doing a lot of work. I will likely be adding a new writer or two, or we will be, I should say. We will be adding a new writer or two around the first of the year. So we're going to try to grow this site, get out more content. With all of us working full-time jobs, plus me doing this, it's just hard to keep up. So we're going to try to bring more writers on and get out more content for you guys. And I think you're going to like the writers we're bringing on, or at least one of them that I've been in conversations with. I'm not going to spill the beans just yet, but I'm looking forward to really growing it. But go check us out, wvsportschat.com. You can even sign up to get it in your email box every day if you want to do that. But there's a lot of really good written content over there on all West Virginia sports, primarily the Big Four sports, football, men's basketball, women's basketball, and baseball. May touch on something else occasionally, but we'll put out press releases from the Big 12, press releases from West Virginia, things like that. Put those out as well. But anyway, I'm going to jump off of here, y'all. I appreciate you hopping in. If you're watching this on the replay, be sure to hit the hype button below if you're watching on your mobile device. Reminder to hit thumbs up, subscribe, leave comments. All of that helps. If you're watching on the playback and you want to leave me your what-if moments in Mountaineer football or Mountaineer sports history, do it in the comment section. I would appreciate it. Also, real quick, shout out to the folks who designed our WV Sports Chat site, Appalachia Digital. Thank them for supporting the show. Go check them out for your brand new website. Go to appalachiadigital.com/coos. And that lets them know I sent you. Appreciate you tuning into this show, whether you're watching it live or on the playback. Hope the rest of your day's top shelf. God bless you, and Q Country Roads.